Omolara sits quietly in the courtyard of her small home, looking at the children playing outside. The sound of their laughter echoes painfully in her ears. Her neighbor, Ayashola, deliberately walks by with her own children, throwing mocking words toward Omolara's inability to conceive. Omolara tries to ignore them, but inside, the pain is unbearable. She reflects on her years of marriage to Femi and how supportive he's been, despite the mockery from his family and the village. She sighs, wiping a tear from her cheek as the scene ends with her resting her hand on her stomach, filled with both longing and hopelessness. Femi is seen at a family gathering, where his mother, Mama Femi, and other relatives relentlessly pressure him about Omolara's barrenness. They suggest he takes another wife who can give him children. Femi defends his wife, telling them he loves her, but the tension is visible on his face. His younger brother Kunle adds fuel to the fire by saying, "A man without children is as good as forgotten." Femi leaves the gathering feeling torn between his love for Omolara and the weight of family expectations. As he returns home, Omolara senses his distress, though he hides it with a forced smile. Late at night, Omolara kneels at her bedside, praying fervently. She pours out her heart to the heavens, asking why she's been burdened with such a fate. The room is dimly lit by a single lamp, her face streaked with tears as she silently begs for a child. Her prayer is interrupted by Femi's gentle voice as he enters the room. He reassures her that no matter what, he will stand by her side. Omolara, however, can't help but feel like she's failed him and herself. Femi embraces her, and the scene ends with Omolara crying softly in his arms. The following day, while walking through the village market, Omolara hears whispers of a mysterious elderly herbalist who recently arrived in town. The villagers say he has helped women who thought they would never conceive. Skeptical but desperate, Omolara decides to visit him, even though she's tried every known remedy in the past. She walking down a narrow dirt path toward the herbalist's hut. She is nervous, but her determination outweighs her fear. When she enters the dimly lit hut, she meets the old herbalist, who greets her with a knowing smile, as if he's been expecting her. The herbalist examines Omolara's hands and looks deep into her eyes before speaking. "Your destiny is not barren, but the path to motherhood will not be easy," he says cryptically. He hands her a small pouch of herbs and instructs her to prepare them carefully, but his final words leave her both hopeful and confused. "Before you can bear fruit, something lost must be found." Omolara leaves the hut with the pouch in hand, uncertain of what the herbalist's message truly means. The scene ends with her holding the herbs tightly, her mind racing with questions about her future. That night, Omolara prepares the herbs as instructed, and takes them before bed. She dreams vividly of a child laughing in a vast field of flowers, but when she reaches out to hold the child, they vanish. She wakes up startled, unsure of what the dream means. As the night fades into morning, Omolara feels a strange warmth in her body, a sensation she has never experienced before. She clutches her stomach, wondering if this could be the first sign of something miraculous, or if it's simply her mind playing tricks on her. The episode ends with her staring out of the window, filled with a cautious sense of hope. Femi notices Omolara has been acting differently since her visit to the herbalist. She seems more hopeful but also more withdrawn, often staring into space or clutching her stomach. He asks her about the herbalist, and if she truly believes in his remedies. Omolara hesitates before telling Femi about the cryptic message, "Before you can bear fruit, something lost must be found." Femi is skeptical, but seeing the glimmer of hope in her eyes, he refrains from voicing his doubts. Instead, he promises to support her no matter what. Yet, as he turns away, a flicker of worry crosses his face. He doesn't want to see her heartbroken again. Word of Omolara's visit to the herbalist spreads quickly in the village. The local women, particularly Iyashola, gather to gossip. "She has finally lost her mind," one of them remarks. "After all these years, now she turns to some old man with strange herbs." Omolara overhears them while passing by the market. She pauses for a moment, anger welling up inside her, but instead of confronting them, she walks away silently, determined not to let their words shake her newfound hope. As she continues home, a slight twinge of pain grips her abdomen, but she dismisses it as nothing. That night, Omolara experiences another vivid dream. This time, she is walking through the same vast field of flowers, but now the child is closer. The child's laughter echoes around her, and just as Omolara reaches out to touch the child, a sudden gust of wind sweeps the child away again. She wakes up abruptly, drenched in sweat. Her heart is racing, and her hands are trembling. As she sits up in bed, she whispers to herself, "What is this child trying to show me?" Femi, awakened by her sudden movement, asks if everything is all right. Omolara doesn't mention the dream, brushing it off as nothing, but deep down, she knows it holds some kind of meaning. While cleaning the house the next day, Omolara stumbles upon an old locket hidden in a drawer. She opens it to find a faded photograph of her mother, who had passed away years ago. Omolara feels a sudden rush of emotion. This locket was thought to be lost during her mother's funeral. She clutches the locket tightly, tears streaming down her face. Could this be the something lost that the herbalist was referring to? The memory of her mother floods her mind, reminding her of the love and strength she once received from her. As Omolara contemplates the meaning of the locket, she decides to return to the herbalist for answers. When she arrives, the once welcoming hut feels different, darker and more foreboding. The herbalist is sitting quietly by the fire, his expression grave. "The locket is just the beginning," he tells her. "You will face more than you've ever imagined before your womb can bring forth life." Omolara is confused, but before she can ask for more clarity, the herbalist hands her a small vial of liquid. "Drink this every night for 7 days, he instructs. "But beware, this path is not without sacrifice." Omolara returns home with the vial in hand, but a sense of fear begins to creep over her. What kind of sacrifice could the herbalist be referring to? She debates whether to follow through with his instructions, or to abandon this strange journey altogether. As she prepares to drink the first dose that night, she stands at the window, staring out into the dark sky. In the distance, she hears faint whispers, almost like voices calling out to her. The fear in her heart grows, but so does her determination. She drinks the vial's contents and waits, unsure of what's to come next. Omolara wakes up in the middle of the night with a sharp pain in her stomach, far worse than anything she had felt before. She clutches her abdomen in agony, tears streaming down her face as she struggles to stay quiet to avoid waking Femi. As the pain subsides, she feels a strange emptiness inside her, like something precious has been taken from her. Omolara stumbles out of bed and into the mirror. Her reflection looks the same, but she knows deep within that the sacrifice has begun. The episode ends with Omolara gripping the locket, tears of both fear and hope in her eyes as she whispers, "I'm ready." Omolara wakes up after the painful night, but the emptiness she felt lingers in her heart. She forces herself to smile at Femi as they eat breakfast together, but her mind is far away, consumed with thoughts of the herbalist's warning. The warmth and joy she once felt from Femi's comforting words now seem distant. Femi notices her discomfort and asks if she's feeling well, but Omolara brushes it off, claiming it's just exhaustion. She begins to wonder what exactly she's sacrificing. Is it her health? Her sanity? Or something even deeper? As Femi leaves for work, Omolara feels a chill run down her spine as she hears faint whispers in the air, just like the ones from the previous night. Femi visits his close friend, Ade, to talk about his concerns regarding Omolara. They sit under a tree outside Ade's home, the sound of village life buzzing around them. Femi tells Ade about Omolara's visits to the herbalist and how distant she's become. "She's changed, Ade. Something is not right," he says, frustration and worry clear in his voice. Ade, who knows of the herbalist's reputation, advises Femi to keep an eye on Omolara. "Sometimes these spiritual paths demand more than we are willing to give," Ade warns. Femi leaves with a heavy heart, unsure of how to confront his wife about the strange path she's on without breaking her spirit. That night, Omolara drinks the liquid from the vial once more before bed, determined to continue the ritual despite her growing fears. In her sleep the same dream returns, but this time, the child is holding something in their hand, a small wooden carving, worn and weathered by time. The child smiles at Omolara before running off into a dense forest. Omolara tries to follow but finds herself unable to move. She watches helplessly as the child disappears into the trees, leaving her feeling abandoned. She wakes up in a panic, her heart racing, and sits up in bed gasping for air. The dreams are becoming more vivid, more real, and she feels like they're leading her towards something important, but she can't figure out what. The following day, Omolara is visited by her mother-in-law, Mama Femi, who has heard rumors of Omolara's visits to the herbalist. She wastes no time confronting her daughter-in-law, her tone sharp and filled with disdain. "You think some old man with herbs can fix what's wrong with you?" Mama Femi snaps. "This village knows you for what you are, barren. You're wasting Femi's time and shaming this family." Omolara stands her ground, refusing to let Mama Femi's harsh words break her spirit. "I may not have given Femi children yet, but I believe my time is coming," Omolara responds, her voice shaking but resolute. Mama Femi leaves in a huff, warning Omolara that if she doesn't fix things soon, the family will take matters into their own hands. As Omolara continues her daily chores, she suddenly remembers the wooden carving from her dream. Something about it seems familiar, though she can't place it. She rushes to the small trunk where she keeps old mementos from her childhood, digging through the contents until she finds a similar wooden carving, a piece her mother had once given her before she passed. The carving has a symbol etched into it, one Omolara has never fully understood. Her heart races as she realizes this must be the connection the dreams are trying to show her. Could her mother be guiding her through these dreams? She decides to return to the herbalist for answers, clutching the wooden carving tightly. Omolara arrives at the herbalist's hut, but this time, the atmosphere feels even darker. The herbalist doesn't greet her with the same knowing smile as before. Instead, his face is somber. Omolara shows him the carving, asking what it means and why her mother's memory seems to be tied to her destiny. The herbalist's voice is low as he explains. "Your mother carried a secret. A gift passed down through your lineage. The child you seek to bring into this world will carry that same gift, but only if you are prepared to accept the sacrifices that come with it." Omolara's heart pounds. "What sacrifices?" she asks. The herbalist looks her in the eye and replies, "Everything you hold dear. To bring forth life, you must be willing to lose something precious." Omolara leaves the herbalist's hut in a daze, her mind reeling from his words. The idea of losing something precious terrifies her, especially knowing how much Femi means to her. Could her marriage, her love for Femi, be the sacrifice? As she walks through the village, her mind races with fear and confusion. Her thoughts are interrupted by a sudden, sharp pain in her abdomen, the strongest she's felt yet. She stumbles and falls to her knees, clutching her stomach as tears stream down her face. Femi's worry has turned into frustration. He notices Omolara becoming more secretive, frequently visiting the herbalist and barely speaking to him about her struggles. At breakfast, Femi attempts to discuss what's been happening. "Omolara, what are you hiding from me? I can feel you drifting away," he says, his voice heavy with concern. Omolara looks into his eyes, guilt and fear flooding her heart. She wants to tell him everything, the dreams, the sacrifices, but she's afraid he'll reject the idea and, more importantly, reject her. Instead, she tells him that she's following a path that could bring them a child, but she avoids the full truth. Femi leaves the house, his silence louder than words, and Omolara feels the growing distance between them. Omolara drinks the herbalist's liquid for the fourth night, and this time, the dream takes a darker turn. The child no longer smiles. Instead, they stand by the edge of the forest, crying. In their hands, they hold the wooden carving, but it's broken now, the symbol shattered. The forest looms ominously behind them, the trees twisting and swaying unnaturally. Voiceover: Omolara tries to reach for the child, but she's pulled back by invisible forces. She wakes up with a jolt, her heart pounding. The dream is becoming more urgent, and she feels that time is running out. Something is going to happen soon, but she doesn't know if it will be good or bad. Femi seeks counsel once again from Ode, his trusted friend. This time, however, Ade's tone is more serious. "Femi, I've heard more rumors. Some say the herbalist is not what he seems. He deals with forces we don't understand. If Omolara is drinking his potions and following his advice, she might be putting herself and your marriage at risk." Femi's anger boils over. He feels helpless, torn between protecting his wife and the fear that she's falling into something dangerous. Ode advises Femi to confront the herbalist directly, to get answers for himself. "You deserve to know the truth," Ode tells him. Femi nods, determined to uncover what's really happening, and heads back to his home with a sense of dread. As Omolara goes about her day, she begins to feel strange sensations in her body, small flutters in her stomach, like the stirrings of life. She's overwhelmed with emotions, but she doesn't want to get her hopes up too soon. Is this the child she's been waiting for, or is it just another sign of the sacrifices to come? Her thoughts are interrupted by Mama Femi, who arrives at the house unannounced. This time, however, Mama Femi isn't there to mock her. Instead, she sits quietly with Omolara and says, "I've been hard on you because I didn't want to see my son suffer. But if there's truly hope for a child, you'll have my support." The words surprise Omolara, and though she's grateful, it's bittersweet. Deep down, she knows the price she might pay to fulfill this dream. Femi, driven by Ade's warning and his growing suspicions, heads to the herbalist's hut. The atmosphere is tense, the village whispers following him as he walks the path Omolara had taken so many times before. When he arrives, the herbalist is sitting quietly by a dim fire. Without pleasantries, Femi demands answers. "What have you been doing to my wife? What are these sacrifices you're making her believe in?" His voice is laced with anger and desperation. The herbalist, calm and unmoved, simply responds, "Your wife has chosen a path that only she can walk. I have not forced her. But know this, Femi, great blessings come at great cost. If she continues, she will gain what she seeks, but at the loss of something just as precious." Omolara sits at the edge of her bed, staring at the wooden carving, feeling the weight of the decision she must make. The flutters in her stomach are growing stronger, and she's almost convinced that life is growing within her. But the herbalist's words, the dream, and the looming sacrifice terrify her. What will she lose? Will it be Femi, her marriage, her sanity? In a moment of desperation, Omolara kneels by her bed and prays. If I am meant to be a mother, show me the way. But if this path will destroy everything I love, give me the strength to turn back. As she prays, the room seems to grow colder, and she feels a presence, almost like her mother watching over her. The scene ends with Omolara clutching the broken wooden carving, her tears falling onto the worn wood as she whispers, "What must I do?" Femi is pacing back and forth in their small living room, his mind in turmoil after Omolara's collapse. He watches over her as she sleeps, her face pale and her body weak from the pain. His heart is torn between his love for her and the fear that she's venturing down a dangerous path that could cost them everything. Femi remembers the herbalist's warning about the sacrifice and contemplates stopping Omolara from continuing. He's willing to risk not having children if it means keeping her safe. When she stirs awake, Femi gently holds her hand and says, "Omolara, maybe it's time to stop. We can be enough without a child." Omolara's eyes fill with tears as she listens, but the determination in her heart remains strong. She shakes her head and whispers, "I can feel it, Femi. I'm so close. But I have to see this through." Femi's grip tightens on her hand, torn between protecting his wife and allowing her to pursue her dream. As Omolara recovers from her latest episode, word spreads through the village about her deteriorating health and her continued visits to the herbalist. The whispers and gossip have turned into open criticism, with villagers accusing her of playing with dark forces to conceive. One day, Omolara walks through the village marketplace, and the women who once mocked her now avoid her entirely, whispering behind her back. Iyashola, one of the most vocal women, stops Omolara in the street and warns her, "There are some things we are not meant to meddle with, Omolara. You are bringing a curse upon this village." Omolara walks away, her heart heavy with the weight of their words, but deep down, she knows she cannot turn back. The sacrifice is already in motion, and she is too far gone to stop now. That night, Omolara is visited by yet another dream, but this one is different. She is no longer in the field of flowers. Instead, she stands in a dense forest, the same one the child had entered in previous dreams. The air is thick, and shadows loom everywhere. Suddenly, her mother appears in front of her, looking just as she did before she passed away. Her mother speaks softly. "Omolara, the path you walk is one of great danger, but you were chosen for this. What you seek will come, but not without losing something precious." Tears fill Omolara's eyes as she pleads, "What will I lose, Mama? I need to know." But her mother's figure begins to fade, and the only words she hears before waking up are, "Everything." Omolara wakes in a cold sweat, terrified of what her mother's message could mean. She clutches the wooden carving tightly, knowing that the sacrifices are far from over. In the days following her dream, Omolara becomes more withdrawn, her focus solely on completing the ritual the herbalist gave her. Femi feels the growing distance between them, and it's beginning to tear him apart. One evening, as Omolara prepares to drink from the vial for what she believes will be the final time, Femi confronts her. "Omolara, I can't do this anymore. You're slipping away from me, and I feel like I'm losing you. Is this really worth it? What if the cost is too high?" Omolara looks at him, her face a mix of sorrow and resolve. "I have to finish this, Femi. I've come too far to stop now. If this is the only way to give us a child, then I must see it through." Femi, heartbroken, turns away, realizing that no matter how much he tries to save her, Omolara is committed to this journey. The tension between them hangs heavy, and Femi leaves the room, unsure if their marriage can survive what's to come. Omolara stands by the window, holding the final vial of liquid the herbalist gave her. She stares out into the dark night, the whispers she's been hearing for weeks now louder than ever, filling her ears with an eerie melody. She takes a deep breath and drinks the final dose, knowing that this is the moment she's been waiting for, the moment everything will change. As she swallows the liquid, a strange sensation washes over her. The room seems to spin, and she feels both light and heavy at the same time. Suddenly, she collapses to the floor, writhing in pain far worse than any she has felt before. Tears stream down her face as she screams out, clutching her stomach, feeling as though something is tearing apart inside her. The whispers grow louder, echoing in her mind. Sacrifice. Sacrifice. Femi, hearing Omolara's cries from the other room, rushes in to find her on the floor, writhing in agony. His heart races as he lifts her into his arms, trying to soothe her, but her body convulses uncontrollably. As the pain reaches its peak, Omolara feels a sudden emptiness inside her, like something has been ripped away. She screams, "No, not this, not this." Femi is beside himself with panic, holding her as she sobs, her body shaking with grief. Omolara knows deep down that the sacrifice has been made. Whatever was growing inside her is now gone. The price she's paid is too high. The scene ends with Omolara collapsing into Femi's arms, her sobs filling the room, both of them crushed by the unbearable loss. The next morning, Omolara wakes up weak and emotionally drained. The pain has subsided, but the hollow feeling in her heart remains. She sits at the edge of the bed, staring into space, unable to comprehend what she has lost. Femi, sitting beside her, is just as broken. He gently takes her hand and asks, "Was it worth it, Omolara? Was this worth losing everything?" Omolara doesn't answer. She doesn't know if it was worth it. All she knows is that the dream she had clung to for so long has slipped away, and now, she is left with nothing but the echo of her own sorrow. The whispers are gone, and the silence is deafening. The episode ends with Omolara staring out the window, wondering if the child she longed for was ever meant to be hers and what she will do now that everything has been taken from her. Weeks have passed since Omolara's collapse. The house that once buzzed with hope and anticipation is now silent. Omolara spends most of her days sitting quietly by the window, staring into the distance. Her body has recovered, but her spirit remains broken. The weight of the sacrifice she made lingers heavily in the air. Femi watches her from a distance, his heart aching for the woman he loves. He's unsure how to comfort her or how to move forward. Every attempt to talk to her is met with silence, and their once strong bond has been deeply strained. As he watches Omolara, Femi recalls the herbalist's cryptic warning. Great blessings come at great cost. Now, he wonders if they've lost everything, including their love, in pursuit of a child they may never have. Femi, determined to get closure, returns to the herbalist's hut. He storms in, demanding answers. "You said there would be a price, but you didn't say it would cost us everything." Omolara is shattered, and we have nothing to show for it. What kind of blessing is this? The herbalist, calm and collected as always, looks Femi in the eye and says, "The path your wife walked was not for the faint of heart. She sought a blessing, but blessings do not always come in the form we expect." Femi is frustrated by the vague response. "What do you mean? We've lost everything. What are we supposed to do now?" The herbalist only offers a final piece of advice. The blessing Omolara sought still lives within her, but it may take a different form. She must come to terms with what she's lost and find the strength to embrace what remains. That night, Omolara has one final dream. She's standing in the forest again, but this time, the child is not crying. Instead, the child stands beside a river, smiling softly. Omolara feels a sense of peace wash over her as she approaches the child. The child speaks for the first time. Mama, I was never meant to be yours in the way you thought. But my spirit will always be with you. Omolara kneels down, tears in her eyes. Why? Why did I have to lose you? The child places a small flower in her hand and says, You never lost me, Mama. You gained the strength to love again. And that love will be your true blessing. When Omolara wakes up, she feels a calmness she hasn't felt in months. She understands that the blessing wasn't about having a child. It was about finding the strength to heal and the courage to move forward. The sacrifice she made was part of a greater lesson. The next morning, Omolara finds Femi sitting on the porch, looking lost in thought. She sits beside him, placing her hand on his. For the first time in weeks, they talk. Femi, I've been lost in my own pain. I thought the only way to find happiness was through a child. But I see now that I was wrong, Omolara says softly. Femi turns to her, his eyes filled with love and relief. I just want us to be together, Omolara. We can build a life, even if it's not the one we imagined. Omolara nods, tears of acceptance and love flowing down her cheeks. We still have each other, and that's enough. The two embrace, and for the first time in a long while, they feel hope returning to their hearts. Moral lesson. Life's blessings don't always come in the form we expect. Sometimes, in chasing a dream, we risk losing sight of the love and blessings we already have. Omolara's journey teaches us that strength lies in accepting what life gives us and finding peace within ourselves, no matter the sacrifices we make. If you enjoyed Omolara's story and its powerful message about love, sacrifice, and finding strength in unexpected places, be sure to like, comment, and subscribe to our channel. Don't forget to hit the notification bell so you never miss a new story. Share this video with someone who needs to hear this inspiring tale. Thank you for watching, and remember, life's greatest blessings may be just around the corner.